So driving across the US was my first long road trip in the Model S. The longest one I had taken before that was a trip to Cadillac, which is about 100 miles away, but I was starting from a completely charged battery and just going to one supercharger and back, so that doesn't really count. So I wanted to share some of the things that I learned on this first long road trip with multiple superchargers all over the US. So first thing, Autopilot and dual motor all-wheel drive are awesome. Autopilot, especially on freeways and interstates, really takes a lot of the, I guess, head stress or eye strain or whatever out of traveling. It's more like flying a plane, really. You get it onto the freeway, you lock it onto the lane lines, and then you just let it do its thing. And you can interrupt it every now and then if you need to correct something, or you want to pass a car or a truck faster than it would by itself. So you pay attention, but it's not the same as, I guess it's not the same as your completely undivided attention that you have to give driving if you don't have autopilot driving for you. So super cool. The one feature or option that I wish I had was a bigger battery. I think if given the choice, I would still spend the money on autopilot and all-wheel drive instead of a larger battery, because the superchargers are spaced out close enough that you can do these trips with the smaller batteries. But the next option that I would have gotten if I wanted to spend the extra money would be a bigger battery. So the jump from 70 to 85 is 10 grand, and then the jump from 85 to 90 is 3,000. So the biggest battery for me would have been a jump in $13,000, and since I'm not going to be doing these kind of trips that often, I didn't really want to spend that much money on upgrade. I would rather have the bigger battery than the leather seats, than the premium interior, than the lighting, than pretty much any other option besides autopilot and dual motor. Also, I found out that when you're using cruise control with autopilot or without it, and you have it going, so it's set on, but you want to reset the speed to whatever the speed limit is, or whatever the speed limit is plus your offset. All you have to do is pull the cruise control wand towards you and hold it for a couple seconds, and it automatically sets to whatever the posted speed limit is, or whatever the speed limit is plus or minus your offset. And again, cruise control has to be already going for that command to work. But you don't have to, say you're going at 80 miles an hour and then the speed limit changes to 65 miles an hour. You don't have to click down all the way down to 65 or 70 or whatever you want to go. All you have to do is pull the wand towards you for a couple seconds, and it automatically resets to the speed limits that it's already tracking anyway. So when we were driving on the interstates and the speed limit was 75, 80 miles an hour, and I had enough energy to actually go that fast, we were driving in some areas where the outside temperature was like 19 degrees or something, very, very cold, and the cold is compounded when you're going at high speeds because of all the cold air that your car is driving by, so that even magnifies the cooling effect of the outside temperature. So I think the car really had to allot energy to keeping the battery at its optimal temperature, which decreases your range. But what was interesting is that the constant high-speed rushing of super cold air outside also cools the cabin. And that's made even worse by, you can actually almost feel these little cold air currents coming from the door jambs. doesn't really seal that well. Not as well as like a car that would have framed windows would, I don't think. But anyway, that also cooled the cabin. So in order to keep the cabin comfortable, even with our coats and stuff on, we had to have the heater, when we were using it, set pretty high. I mean, even just to keep it comfortable, sometimes it would have to be set to, I don't know, 75 or 80 degrees, just to keep up with the cold, cooling, chilling effect of the outside air. So that was a little bit surprising. Also, the superchargers in California are really crowded. Even we were driving around on interstates or whatever in the middle of the week. There's just so many Teslas on the road out there that the superchargers can fill up pretty quickly, and some of them even had a waiting line of 1 to 3 vehicles waiting for a spot to open up so they could charge. So I guess that's one advantage of being in a state where it's illegal for Tesla to sell, is that the chargers aren't as crowded. TripAdvisor is super helpful and also consistently wrong in cold weather. So most of the time when I charged up to a point where it said I would arrive with 20% of my battery left, that was almost never true. Most of the time I would end up with about 10% left. TripAdvisor seemed to be accurate if you were going 60 miles an hour, which there's no point in going 60 miles an hour when the speed limit is 80 miles an hour on the interstate. So it really seems like TripAdvisor is estimating your energy use at a lower average speed than some of the higher speed interstates. Now, it could also be that it's not factoring in the temperatures. Most of the time I was driving in pretty good weather conditions, so it wasn't like super, it wasn't wet or slushy, or at least I didn't expect it to be correct in those times. But when it was like, dry and good conditions and smooth driving, I did expect it to be a little bit more accurate. So, especially in the winter, make sure you charge, if you have a 70D, charge so that TripAdvisor tells you have at least 20% left. And even when I charged to that level, I couldn't even go the speed limit the whole time. I would have to drop down to like 60 or 65 miles per hour for a period of time to conserve energy. And then as I got closer to my destination and I knew I was going to make it, then I would increase my speed up to, it's usually like 75 miles an hour in the middle of the US. If you're going to be going on a cold weather trip, fill your washer fluid before you leave with actual washer fluid. Don't use water. Mine was almost empty when we left. I forgot to fill it, and I substituted a little bit of water in there for a little while, and that didn't work very well. I finally bought some washer fluid, but by the time I put that in there, I don't know, the line was frozen or something, so it took a while for that to thaw before I could actually use the washer fluid that I had just put in. Speaking of washer fluid, so my car has the cold weather package, which includes wiper nozzle heaters and wiper blade heaters. At the base of the windshield there's a heating band. And I suppose if you're iced over or something and everything's stuck, I guess the heat would help if it could loosen it up, but for the most part it's not very helpful. The most convenient feature of that particular package is the heated steering wheel, which I use all the time, but otherwise, I also found out that you can use the accelerator pedal when autopilot is engaged, and it won't turn autopilot off, which I talked about in another video about how to get around the road restrictions or speed restrictions with using autopilot on residential streets. Not that you would need to, but yeah, so if you have autopilot set to 70 miles an hour and you want it to, I don't know, pass a car on your right or left a little bit faster than it ordinarily would, all you have to do is just speed up a little. Autopilot will still steer, and then when you're done, you just let go and it goes back to your set speed. Another thing is that the back bumper storage here is bigger than I thought. I knew, see, here's one of the beams here, So I knew we had this much space, but what I didn't realize is that underneath, it's actually open. So it goes all the way to the edge of the vehicle down here. Same thing on this side. That's all open, and I don't know, it's like maybe 3 inches at the tallest. So you know, if you have something long and flat, you can actually fit it underneath there. So that was something I hadn't realized before we really started packing things in here.